Jim, did Hillary Clinton honor the results? No. Did Democrats honor the results?
Yes, she did. She called and conceded the
She
election. Corey,
Jim,
I was with
true.
you guys on election night in Manhattan.
She said the election was stolen. She said there was Russian interference.
She called,
Members of this network said that the Steele dossier was true.
She called the then president-elect and conceded the election.
All right, guys. So we're less than 1 month away from the 2024 election, and we're going to be dealing with a question that has been stumping Republicans for the past 4 years straight, which is, who won the 2020 election? So recently, VP candidate J.D. Vance was posed this simple question by Tim Walz at the debate, and he had a bear of a time answering this. So other Trump acolytes went on to TV and they were posed the same question. Let's see how they handled it.
The Trump campaign. Joining us now, senior advisor to the former president, Corey Lewandowski. He used to serve as campaign manager for Trump's 2016 White House run. Corey, thanks for being with us. We appreciate it. Let's get right into this. Last night, Senator Vance refused to answer whether Trump lost the 2020 election. Let's listen to that.
I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
Yeah, Corey, why is this so difficult for the Trump campaign to answer? I mean, it's 2024. Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election? Can you answer that?
Jim, I think it's very simple. The American people have passed the 2020 election. They're focused on an election which is just under 5 weeks away. And what we have an opportunity to do now is to talk about two different visions for America. And what J.D. Vance laid out last night is a very different vision than what Tim Walz and Kamala Harris want to say. So, look, we can go back and relitigate the 2020 election, or we can look at what we can do to make America better for the everyday Americans who are struggling under Bidenomics.
Yeah,
they're struggling
Corey,
under.
It's not relitigating. It's just a simple question. Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election? I mean, that's an
but
easy
Jim,
one.
why are we talking about 2020 anymore? Does the American people care about the 2020 election anymore, or do they care about being able to put food on their table, gas in their car, home
I think
heating
one
oil
reason
in
why
their...
it's coming up, Corey, is because the former president has said on the campaign trail repeatedly that there was all this widespread fraud in 2020. That was not the case. And he's also teeing up the same kinds of challenges after this election. It hasn't even happened yet. So it is a very relevant
Jim,
question.
we know there was fraud. There's no question there was some fraud that took place in the 2020 election. There's no question about that.
Fraud.
What does widespread mean, Jim? Is one vote that's illegal enough? Or how many do you determine is widespread? What is that number?
There were instances of voter fraud from Trump supporters. I mean, you know that from the 2020 campaign. But
and you're saying there was none on the other side, Jim?
I mean, I'm sure there was, but Corey, I mean, every expert, people from inside the Trump administration who have come out since then have said, no widespread voter fraud. And
but what does widespread mean, Jim? Why are we focusing on 2024 is my question.
I guess what you're saying is that Donald Trump did not lose the 2020 election. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is Joe Biden is the president of the United States. You recognize that, and I recognize that. But let's talk about the 2024 election, which is less than 5 weeks away, and let's look at the two visions for America that these two candidates have.
Will Donald Trump honor the results of the 2024 election? Will he do that?
Okay, so obviously Corey Lewandowski really having a difficult time with that one. Can we also talk about his voice? He's just very squeaky and whiny about it. So yeah, not having a good response there. Next up, we have Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson. He's going to be posed with the exact same question. Let's see how he handles it.
I want to ask you a question that Senator Vance did not answer at this week's debate. Can you say unequivocally that Joe Biden won the 2020 election and Donald Trump lost?
See, this is the game that is always played by mainstream media with leading Republicans. It's a gotcha game. You want us to litigate things that happened 4 years ago when we're talking about the future. We're not going to talk about what happened in 2020. We're going to talk about 2024 and how we're going to solve the problems for the American people. I think this game that's played all the time, I'm not going to engage in it. We're not talking about that. Joe Biden has been the president for almost 4 years. Everybody needs to get over this and move forward. That's what we need to talk about. What happens on November 5 and the days after that? I think that's really important, and that's what the Americans demand for us to talk about.
So like Senator Vance, you cannot say unequivocally that Joe Biden won the 2020 election and Donald Trump lost?
George, I'm the Speaker of the House. I work with the President of the United States all the time. Joe Biden has been the president for 4 years. There's not a question about this, okay?
Well, it's President Trump who every single day, former President Trump, at just about every rally is saying that the election was rigged, that he won, and that Joe Biden lost. I'm just saying if you accept that or not.
George, I'm not going to play the game.
Mr. Speaker, the reason it's relevant is because of what former President Trump says at every rally. He's also laying the groundwork to challenge the results this year if he loses. Let's look at this.
If I lose, I'll tell you what's possible, because they cheat. That's the only way we're going to lose, because they cheat. They cheat like hell.
Is that what you believe? The only way that Donald Trump loses is if the Democrats cheat?
Donald Trump's going to win. I'll tell you that election security is a major concern of the American people. All these cities I've been in, hundreds of places doing campaign rallies over the last several months, the first or second question, almost without exception, in every audience and crowd is about election security. I think the latest poll says 60% of Americans in both parties are worried about that. They're worried about election interference by foreign nationals like Iran, who's trying to meddle in our elections. They're worried about, of course, illegals voting, non-citizens voting. That is against federal law. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have not made clear to people, reminding them it is against federal law. And we know that the handful of states that have done audits on their voter rolls have shown that you have non-citizens currently registered to vote. That's a concern. That's a problem by people. And it's not being adequately addressed by the Biden-Harris administration.
As
we're
you know,
hopeful we have a free and fair election. I certainly hope so.
Okay, guys. So, first of all, I want you to remember that they have had 4 years to work on this question, which is a yes or no question. They've had 4 years to study for the test. And there's a couple things that you'll notice. Is one, they will never, ever, under any circumstances, answer that yes-no question. They will never say, yes, Biden won the election, or yes, Trump lost the election. Okay, they will always say things like, hey, look, Biden is the president. Okay, but that's not answering, did he win? Okay, and the reason that they won't admit that Trump lost is because it's political suicide. Like, you know, Mr. Baby Trumpty Dumpty will axe them if they admit publicly that he lost. And if they say that Biden won fair and square, then it takes away one of the main pillars of their election strategy, which is to call into doubt the legitimacy of the election. So, like, the mainstays are they're going to do voter suppression by making it harder for people to vote. They're going to do, you know, partisan gerrymandering and things like that to make it better for them. Purge voter rolls and things like that. But literally do everything that they can in order to subvert the election results, and then also call into question the election results. So they keep saying that they want to focus on the future and not relitigate 2020 because they are desperate to get away from this issue. It was one of the smart things that Tim Walz did was to bring that up to JD Vance and try and get him to actually answer for that on the record. This issue is not popular for Republicans, okay? Most Americans don't agree with them. But what's even funnier about this whole, like, we're not focused on 2020, we're not focused on the past, is their whole mantra is make America great again, which inherently means they want to focus on the past. They want to go back. So this idea that, like, well, we're not focused on the past, we just want to go back to the way things were before the Democrats were in power, which is focusing on the past. It's also, it's so funny, like, Republicans constantly complain about illegal voting, even though it's very, very rare. Like, instances of voter fraud are extremely low. You see it in that chyron there at the bottom of the screen. And I brought this up that, like, the Cato Institute, which is a right-wing think tank, proved that it's, like, if you do hand counts of ballots or whatever it is, that it's 16 times more likely to have some sort of a mistake if it's done by hand, by humans, than if it's done by machine. And also that the percent of illegal people voting in elections is approximately 0%. Like statistically, it's closer to 0% than it is to 1%. But the Republicans are trying to shoehorn in the SAVE Act, which is a piece of legislation they want to jam into the continuing resolution that would keep the government open and avoid a shutdown. The SAVE Act is a thing that would say that it's illegal for undocumented people to vote, non-citizens to vote, which it's already illegal. So yeah, I mean, it's already illegal, and this is just stupid. But guys, what's really going on is they've been building this case for 4 years. All right. Now, realistically, Trump did this back in 2016 too, except Trump actually won in 2016. But he was calling into doubt the results of the election before the election results were in 2016, which Hillary Clinton didn't like the results, but she did concede that she lost the election. Okay. And I know it's a tedious question and it keeps coming up. And right-wingers are just furious that they keep getting asked about this question of who won the 2020 election. But it's because they refuse to give a straight answer, right? Mike Johnson says, well, I'm not going to play this gotcha game. It's not a gotcha question. It's just, can you live in the same reality as everyone else? Are you able to accept facts? And it keeps coming up because we're less than 1 month away, and they're already telegraphing and have been telegraphing for the past 4 years that if it looks like Donald Trump is losing, if it looks like Kamala Harris is winning, they're going to call into question the results of the election. Okay, so I need people to understand something. I need everyone to understand this. The Republicans are a minority party, okay, and they have been for quite a while now. Their policies are not popular. They can't govern their way out of a wet paper bag. This past Congress, elected in 2022, has been the least productive Congress in like the history of the country. They spent their whole time going over Hunter Biden dick pics and trying to impeach Joe Biden over nothing and talking about how they're going to take away your gas stoves. They're unserious. They're not capable of governing. Their policies are not popular. And so the only reason that there's still a competitive political party is because we unfortunately have a two-party system, and it's because the Democrats are run by neoliberal corporate centrists, despite what the Republicans say. They're not communist, socialist, whatever. They're very milquetoast. Their main policy is to do incrementalism. They don't want to do substantive change on anything. The other reason is that the electoral system, the electoral college, heavily favors Republicans in that it disproportionately gives voting power to empty land over actual people. But like I said, we're less than a month out. I can already tell you there's going to be challenges to this election no matter what. And it's because like they're going to do everything in their power to make sure that they can, even if it looks like it's a blowout, even if it looks like it's not even close, they're going to say that there was illegal voting. They're going to say that there was fraud. They're going to say something about the voting machines. I mean, like I've already talked about this with like Georgia saying they're going to hand count ballots. I mean, ridiculous. You have any idea how long that's going to take? And it's the reason that they have, their 70 or some odd election officials in key swing states that are Trump loyalists and election deniers. It's since they are not a popular party, they are a minority party, they have to do everything in their power to try and rig the system to help them because they're not going to win in terms of popularity. They're not going to win the popular vote. I can guarantee it. I guarantee you Trump will lose the popular vote by several million votes. It's just whether or not he can win the Electoral College. Well, like I said, here we are 4 years later. Still can't answer a yes/no question. Oh God, the times we live in. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.